Hey friends, happy new year. I told myself I was not going to cry or get emotional during this message. I have a lot of things I want to talk to you about as we kind of kick off 2025 and look back on 2024. So bear with me because I have a lot of things I want to mention that are very personal to me and that mean a lot. And I just want to start off by expressing so much gratitude for you being here. Okay, I can do this. I share my story often. The new Evangelicals got started because I had a lot of questions about my faith in December of 2020, literally 4 years ago. I was watching the rise of Trump. I was watching how Christians, mainly white evangelicals, were responding to Black Lives Matter. I was watching how pastors I knew were pushing COVID conspiracy theories. And I thought to myself, I don't understand. This does not seem to line up with the way of Jesus. And I was fully embedded in the evangelical church. I was a drummer. I was all in. And in December of 2020, I thought to myself, I'm going to start this Instagram account called The New Evangelicals. I have no credentials. I am a volunteer drummer in New Jersey, particularly in South Jersey. I am not tapped into the broader conversation at all. I just have a lot of questions. And 4 years later, here we are, one of the leading organizations in the progressive Christian space, helping people find a better path forward in their faith. And frankly, I am just completely humbled and blown away that this has happened the way that it's happened. You're not looking at someone who had some master plan or knows how to run a nonprofit or had any business experience or content creation experience. I was a drummer. I loved drumming. That was my whole identity. And to be here now to do this work is amazing. So I want to start off by saying, first and foremost, I cannot thank you enough for being here. I can't thank you enough for listening to the podcast, watching on YouTube, engaging on our Instagram account or TikTok or our private Facebook community. It brings out a sense of emotion that I can't fully articulate with my words, which is a shame because I tend to talk now for a living. But I'm just really humbled by this. I'm humbled by how far we've come, by how much the organization has grown this year, which I'm going to kind of get into, and also what I'm looking forward to next year. The other thing I wanted to say briefly is that on a personal level, I'm doing really great. Me and my family, my 2 kids, my wife, my partner, Sarah, we are doing, this might be one of our best years yet on a personal level. Everyone's really healthy. Me and my partner have an unbelievably strong marriage. She's my ride or die, and I feel like I'm in a really good headspace. In the beginning of this work, especially when you first enter the world of content creation, you're making videos on YouTube or Instagram, you really do live and die by the numbers that these programs and platforms give you, right? Because they have all these up arrows or down arrows, so you can see if your video did better than your last video and how many people you reached, and you can get so anxious thinking, oh my gosh, this video isn't hitting how I thought. But this year, I feel like I finally got a grasp on managing those emotions. And I'm not always perfect at it, but I wasn't living and dying by the algorithm on any of these platforms. So I just want to say that too, like on a personal level, I don't feel burnt out at all. I feel motivated more than ever, especially given the election results and the rise and emboldened nature of Christian nationalism. Again, we'll get into that. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. I feel so clear-headed. I feel like we're really laser focused. We have an amazing team that has been helping me behind the scenes, thinking about the bigger picture. So everything is really good on my end. Okay, I wanted just to share a few different numbers. I know that numbers aren't the fanciest thing to share, but I do want to kind of give you guys just some details. One of the key pieces that makes TNE what it is that I don't believe in like having a barrier between you and me. So I'm going to give you stuff that I see, stuff that we pull, just data so you know where we are as an organization. YouTube truly has been the biggest year of growth ever by over 1,000%. In every metric, when it comes to our ad revenue, when it comes to our viewership, our video duration, we went from about 5,000 subscribers in April of this year and ended the year close to 41,000 subscribers. And I can't, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. It's been so much fun making content for YouTube, although it is a whole different animal compared to other content platforms. But essentially, we did 223 videos, 2.5 million views, 468,000 watch hours, and we gained 35,000 plus new subscribers this year on YouTube. On Instagram, we had 267 posts, over 5 million views. I drank, my team says, 472 cups of blueberry coffee, which might not be too far off, to be fair, and we gained 50,000 new followers. On TikTok, we did one mission strip. That's a flashback to the video that April, my co-host April, and I did about being a missionary to the Christian Nationalists. I'll put a link if you want to watch it in the description. 3.6 million likes, and we have a total now of 131,000 followers. The podcast, so this isn't YouTube, it's just our podcast. 135 episodes this year, 850,000 plus downloads, and we peaked at number 50 on the spirituality charts on Apple Podcasts, which is just, again, I'm working out of my guest bedroom here, friends. Like, we are a very small operation, and it is just humbling to have that kind of visibility in the podcast space. So it's really been an unbelievable journey this year as far as content goes, but we've also added a lot of new things. So, for example, we went to 3 podcast episodes a week. That did taper off towards the end because I couldn't keep up, and I'll explain why later on. But for a while, I was doing a Monday episode, a Wednesday episode, and then we brought in this new weekly recap with me and April LaJoy. And I have a big announcement about that, by the way, that we'll get to at the end of this video. But that really exploded our visibility and our growth because we were posting this on YouTube and on podcasts. We also started in-studio interviews for the first time. I brought in several really amazing guests to have in-person conversations about sex, about racism and slavery, about Palestine, about Christian nationalism. We also flew out to Texas to interview James Tallarico in person in front of a live audience. So as far as our production, this was such an amazing year for me as a creator to do new things that we just didn't have the ability or budget to do last year because of the generosity of all of our donors. Because as a 501c3 nonprofit, we really are funded by donations. And so that was such an amazing ability to be able to actually bring people into a studio, have the conversation, put it on YouTube as an exclusive, and see people really benefit from the conversations that we were having. We also were really well networked behind the scenes this year. One of my favorite things that was just, again, so humbling was Reverend Otis Moss III. He's a pastor out of Chicago. President Obama attended this church. Reverend Wright was the initial pastor before him. Him and I connected, and we became quite friendly. I flew out to his church in Chicago, and we had a great time. And I'm going back in January to film him for an in-studio conversation at his church that we're going to drop at the end of this month, so look forward to that. And he has asked me to be part of their first inaugural class of a small group of creators that they are pushing and promoting and supporting as we do the work to disrupt the threat of Christian nationalism. So that's a huge accomplishment for the organization. Again, so humbled to have Reverend Otis Moss III as a friend and a colleague and someone that I respect and who has done amazing work in the Black Christian tradition. Like, it's amazing that we're even connected to him. And also, one other highlight I wanted to point out that was another just wow moment for me, how did I get here, was I got asked to speak on a panel at Notre Dame with all these other experts, people like Jim Wallace and Ann Nelson, who's an esteemed journalist, sharing our data and our perspective that right-wing media and that ecosystem is so well funded, and how left-wing spaces and even just mainstream democratic spaces need to think about what and who they're funding as we go into 2025. So being able to be at Notre Dame and be on a stage presenting in front of all kinds of scholars and academics as the former homeschooled guy with no college degree was just like, how did I get here? It was truly unbelievable. A couple other big first time things I want to share with you on the organizational level. We have a first ever full-time hire. Her name is Cassidy. We hired her in October. She is phenomenal. She's been such a huge help on my end, helping me think about content, kind of getting things organized, making sure that we're not dropping the ball. I am not the most organized person, okay? Anyone who works with me will tell you this. I am a creative. I have ideas, and I'm also self-sustaining, meaning I could just be a small independent one-man show and just focus on YouTube or Instagram. I have the ability to do that, but oftentimes my imagination is bigger than what my body can actually do. And Cassidy has been so helpful in getting us organized and scheduled and thinking about the bigger picture and making sure that I'm not always doing things last minute. So she's been amazing. She flew out with me to America Fest. Look forward to that video, by the way. But yeah, she flew out with me to America Fest to capture content. It's been so great having someone full-time with the organization who isn't just me. And of course, we did bring on some more contractors, some new graphic designers, some people to help out with funding and coordinating. So it is really surreal to see the organization start to stand on its own 2 feet apart from me. There's a board of directors that's getting stuff done and working on the policies and procedures. We have people working on fundraising and coordinating that kind of stuff and graphic design and YouTube. And it's just very cool to know that when I wake up, I don't have to worry about all the stuff that I usually have to worry about. So that was amazing. But I did, on a personal level, I did have some learns. Okay, one of the learns I had was that I can't do it all. TNE really grew this year, and I felt the weight of trying to manage a lot of things at one time, right? I'm on paper, I'm the executive director, so I'm managing like admin stuff, and I'm managing the fundraising piece of it. I'm managing the content, and now we're doing 3 episodes on the podcast a week, and we're doing YouTube, and now I'm trying to do Instagram content, but also I have emails to answer. So I learned that I can't do it on my own. And I also learned that it's good to have some separation between me as the individual and the New Evangelicals, the organization. The tough part is that because I started this thing out of this house and I was kind of the face of it and really still am, I feel very symbiotic with the New Evangelicals, right? And that can be good, but it can also not be very healthy for anyone, including the creator, because you can never turn your brain off because there's always something to do. So this year I really learned to let go of some stuff, to start delegating more. And again, having our new hire, having some new contractors has been so helpful to get other stuff done that not only do I not enjoy doing, but I'm just not good at doing it. So it's been really a big learn for me to really think about, what do I love to do? And here's the honest answer. I love making content. I love doing this. I love podcasting and talking to guests. I love making short form content on Instagram and TikTok. And I want to get back into that this year. We tried some new stuff on Instagram that was really good, and we're going to keep doing a lot of that. But I miss making short form content, and that really impacted our visibility on those platforms. So a big focus for me in this upcoming year is getting back into that content creation mode now that we have people behind the scenes that are able to kind of build out the infrastructure of the organization to make it sustainable for the long term. The other thing I'll say that I learned is to be a little more patient. Now, I'm not an angry person. I'm not a yeller or a screamer. That's not me. I'm just a very impatient person. When I have something in my head, I have to get it done right away. When I need something, I want it done as soon as possible. And there's a lot of benefits to that, right? Because especially in the content creation world, you have to be on it. When breaking news drops, you got to be able to make a video or talk about it pretty much that same day, if not the day after. So my sense of go is really beneficial there. But when you're working with other people, especially contractors who aren't full-time, you have to be able to give deadlines and have realistic expectations. So I learned this year to find the balance of, look, here's what I'm expecting. Can you fulfill that? If you can't, let me know. But if you can, I'm going to hold you to it. And that's been a learn for me that I've enjoyed learning, but it's also been a challenge at times because there are moments where breaking news happens and we need to make assets immediately to get this stuff out. So that's kind of the past year. Like I said, really good year for the organization in every way. Even our fundraising, by the way. And again, this stuff is all public. Okay, I'm not here to hide stuff from you guys. I just ran some of the numbers between last year and this year. So last year, between November and December of 2023, we were able to raise about $72,000. This year, between November and December of 2024, we raised $118,000. That's awesome. And I will tell you, as someone who started this and went full time with it, when the organization was bringing in a whopping $3,000 a month, so often fundraising was tied to if I can take a paycheck or not. And knowing that we actually have money that can sustain the organization and pay other people and also pay me and cover our overhead is a huge relief. Personally, it is a huge burden lifted to know that we actually have some financial capital in the bank to keep everything going that lets us make this content. And as you're going to hear right now, invest heavily in our community spaces. So let's talk about that. We know that a lot of you out there are looking for connection. Content is great. Content is helpful. Content is amazing. It's needed. But we have a whole different side of the organization that really has been underdeveloped. And that's only because, as me being the main driver of this, I had to focus on one over the other. And I focused on content. That's more my passion anyway. But we actually have a private Facebook group. We have a website where you can log in and join a free community map and see who's in your area and message them. And it's a little outdated and people don't really engage with it so much anymore. And I get that. But this year, we are going to redo all of that. We're going to do a serious investment. I mean, we're looking up to $40,000, maybe even more. It's hard to know. To really redo and give people a one-stop shop that merges our community spaces plus easier ways to access all of our content. We have almost 350 podcast episodes right now, and I get asked all the time, hey, have you talked about hell, or if you talked about the Bible or this topic or that topic? And the answer is yes. We have to go digging through our archives to find it. We want to make it so you can go to one website or one app and get access to all of that stuff and engage with people who are like-minded, so you know that you're not alone as you're trying to find a better path forward in your faith. This is going to be a very big undertaking. It probably will not be ready till, I'm guessing, at least late spring, if not summer, but we are starting that process now. We have meetings lined up with different vendors. We're talking about a massive overhaul to give people a way to connect and go beyond just the content. I know for all of us, including me, that is such a huge need. You lose your church, you lose your community, Christian nationalism gets emboldened, you're not sure where to go. We want to be able to give you a digital space where you can find people who are like-minded, helping you navigate a better path forward in your faith that also allows you to find our content, our resources, books, whatever kind of help you need in a really easy to find format. So we are absolutely working on that. We also plan on investing heavily into more and more content. One of the things that we launched last year was something called Project Amplify. The goal was to amplify new voices, as many as possible across all of our channels. And newsflash, we did it. We successfully amplified dozens of new voices between our podcast, our YouTube, and even our Instagram. We started doing more collab posts with different creators, and we want to keep developing that. One of the visions we have, and this is kind of not fully baked yet, so don't hold me to it, but one of the ideas that we have is kind of creating almost like a TNE media umbrella and having different podcasts and different shows and even creators underneath of that are making content in their respective lanes, but they're all under kind of the same media organization. That way you're able to find them easily, and that way they're able to use our platform to find a new audience. So that will take, again, time and money and funding and creativity, but we're kind of starting that this year. And I'm happy to announce that me and April, my co-host, are going to spin off the weekly recap into its own separate show. Completely. We're going to have a separate podcast, a separate YouTube channel. We're going to go probably 2 or 3 times a week and kind of recap what's happening in the news more consistently. And we're going to make it its own show underneath the TNE media umbrella. And this is for a couple reasons. Number one, I feel like the podcast and even this YouTube channel is very cluttered, right? We do interviews, we do talk to camera or talk to the audience directly like this. We do these recaps with April, and that just adds a lot of clutter to one show. I really think that the New Evangelicals podcast and YouTube channel has to go back to its roots of helping people find a better path forward in their faith, maybe calling out church abuse. So that's more interview style, that's more church abuse coverage, things like that. But when it comes to what April and I were doing, that was more at the intersection of faith, politics, and culture. And that was a little more lighthearted, right? A little more comedy, a little more in the moment. And I think it needs to have its own separate space and branding and show name and focus so we can find a wider audience to let people know that, hey, there are progressive Christians out there. And I don't use that term often, but just for sake of this conversation, there are progressive Christians out there who are very much tapped in to what's happening in culture and have something to say as far as their beliefs go, right? Because so often what is so frustrating is hearing right-wing media be like, we hold the biblical perspective on this topic. And it's like, mass deportations are not the biblical or the Christian perspective at all. That's the right-wing Christian nationalist perspective. We need other voices who are Christians who are saying, hey, actually, we decry that, we denounce that, and because of our faith, we believe in welcoming the immigrant. We believe in welcoming the foreigner and protecting the immigrant, right? So I think that for us to do that well, we have to have this show idea has to have its own space. So April is signing a contract. We're going to actually bring her on as a paid co-host with me to develop this show. Name to TBD. If you have a suggestion, put it in the comments or send me an email if you're listening to this on podcast. But my point is that we are starting to slowly expand the TNE media world. And that makes me really, really, really excited. Look, I know that a lot of us are worried about this year. We saw the election results. We're not sure what to do with this. We feel like we're on the underside as far as our perspective goes because of just how Trump really swept everything. Part of that is true, for sure. There is, especially in the Christian world, if you're an evangelical or former evangelical like me, we are absolutely the rebellion, right? We are absolutely part of the rebellion now. We are on the underside of what is the dominant themes that we see in white evangelical Christianity. But the good news is that there are other Christians out there. There are other Christians who are not white, who have been here much longer than we have, who have amazing things to offer us. And I think this year will be the year of giving you better tools to not only resist Christian nationalism and to critique it as a prophetic voice to culture, but to give you a better path forward in your faith that's rooted in liberation and justice and inclusivity, and that takes the words of Jesus seriously, right? That says, because we are called to heal the sick, why don't we have affordable healthcare in this country, right? We really want to take on those questions and give a different perspective, still a Christian perspective, but a different perspective from that dominant white evangelical mainstream school of thought that really permeates so much of the public discourse. So I know a lot of you are worried, and we have good reason to be. We have good reason to be, and we're going to cover those stories. We're not going to ignore what's happening. We're not going to ignore the cabinet picks of Trump or the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes that absolutely scares us. I believe that we as the new evangelicals and we as an organization are actually really well situated to be a very unique voice, because there is really no one in the more progressive left-wing space that also is highly religious, that is doing stuff like this. And that's the key, right? One of my biggest critiques so far of the left-wing influencer world, and a lot of them do great work, don't misunderstand, but one of my critiques is that I feel like they really don't understand or want to understand the theology, the Christian ideology that anchors so much of what we're seeing in politics. If you don't know names like Doug Wilson, Lance Wallnau, William Wolfe, Joel Webbin, if you don't know those names, RJ Rushdoony, you're never going to fully be able to understand how Trump got elected again and what animates a lot of his decisions, including who he picks in his cabinet, right? And so I feel like we have a very unique opportunity as the new evangelicals to be one of those voices that says we are for the liberation of our neighbors, we are for the liberation of the Palestinians, we are for the well-being of all of our neighbors, we are inclusive, we are justice-oriented, and we are motivated by our faith to expose a very twisted ideology and an antichrist gospel that is absolutely funding and fueling so much of what we're seeing in our current political discourse. So I think that 2025 is going to be a very big year for us. We're releasing a book for the first time that comes out on Erdman's. I wrote a book. Yep, that's true. That kind of covers my story plus the story of the new evangelicals. That will drop later on this summer. There's a lot of things happening that are going to hopefully give people awareness that there are organizations out there like this one that are trying to do the work to give people that better path forward in their faith, rooted in love, justice, and inclusivity. I want to say, I once again do not have the words to describe how truly grateful I am for you, the audience, for the people who message me, who email me, who leave comments, who watch our content, who donate. I wish I could hug every single one of you individually. What you see with me is what you get. This is just how I am as a human. This is not an act. I'm not pretending that I'm someone different off camera. This organization has been built completely from the ground up as a grassroots experiment, seeing if we can make this work. We don't have billionaire funding. We have thousands of grassroots funders that give a little bit here and there. Some give more, some give less, some give what they can. That's how this stuff works. And it is really humbling to be the person on this side of the screen making this content and seeing it consumed and seeing the positive reaction to it. So I am really motivated like hell for 2025. Big time. big time. We have a lot of work to do, but we are not going anywhere. If you want to support the work that we're doing, you can donate via the link in our show notes or in this description. Every donation you make in the US is tax deductible. Like I said, we're a legitimate 501c3 nonprofit. That's how we do this work. There's no paywalls, there's no Patreon, nothing like that. This is all about grassroots funding the work so people know that we're around and that we're here to offer people that better path forward in their faith. Hey, listen, to you and your family, have a great new year. We're going to get through 2025, and more than that, we're going to thrive. We're absolutely going to thrive. There is work to do, but we're going to do the work, and we're here every step of the way. Happy New Year. Talk to you soon.